We've been told by Master Dwell Kul, as we come together as a group of disciples, that his goal is to train us to recognize the new emerging ideas and to translate them into the concepts which will condition human thinking in the cycle just ahead. This involves the cultivation of a correct sense of timing, which will give us the key to the real meaning of the eternal now, the synthesis of past, present, and future. We will be taught the art of precipitation, or the mode of conveying these ideas to the minds of the intellectuals in the world. Through these concrete and receptive minds, the presented ideas are transformed then into ideals and then are brought to the attention of humanity. He goes on later and says the disciples' work lies primarily with the advanced, pioneering thinker and not with the demanding masses. And we're told to remember that the purpose for which humanity exists is the same as individual meditation. The achieving of that focused attention and mental quiet, wherein reality can be contacted, the true and the beautiful can be registered, divine purpose can be recorded, and then it becomes possible to transmit to the phenomenal form upon the physical plane the needed energy whereby the subjective realization can be materialized. Let us pause to consider what we are doing in our group meditations and in our group service projects that is aligned with this particular set of items that he gives us. We'll consider this in silence. And when you are ready, offer any thoughts that you have in relation to the variety of groups that we are serving in. it might be noted that, for example, in the groups that are meeting to work with esoteric healing and have for many years, there is an establishment of this focused attention and a mental quiet. It is difficult to ascertain whether reality is being contacted, but certainly soul contact has been increased. And within that, one senses the groups having a connection to the true and the beautiful in a way that the healing is, at least the radiatory healing work, is being manifest in the groups and individuals to which it is directed. One can't say particularly that divine purpose can be recorded, but certainly there is some transmission to the phenomenal form upon the physical plane, and the needed energy is being materialized from the reports of those who are the recipients of this particular method of healing. And certainly we know that in those healing groups and in other groups, silence is required in order that the light will enter in. So in terms of esoteric healing particularly, that is one of the principles that the group endeavors to achieve: holding silence, not discussing the patients, not discussing their progress or their achievement, but just holding silence. So let us enter into a beam of directed, focused light, revealing a greater light and illumining the way to the center of the light. We stand as a group, quieting, stilling the lower vehicles and lifting to attend to the highest that we can reach, the soul vehicle. And then directing that light into the center of our group. And now connecting to all those working, serving, meditating around the globe, and inviting the energies of those from the other side of the veil into this focused, directed light, directing our way. Using the sign of the cross of divinity, we sound the protective formula. As a soul, I work in light, and darkness cannot touch me. I take my stand within the light, I work, and from that point, I never move. Together we merge with the group and all of our current service groups in heart and mind, and direct the energy into and through the heart and the head to the group center, and sound the mantra of light. Radiance we are, and power. We stand forever with our hands stretched out, linking the heavens and the earth, the inner world of meaning and the subtle world of glamour, maya, and illusion. We reach into the light and bring it down to meet the need. We reach into the silent place and bring from thence the gift of understanding. Thus, with the light, we work and turn the darkness into day. Om Mani Padme Om. What dost thou see, O disciple, on the path? Naught but myself, O master of my life. Look closer at thyself and speak again. What seest thou? A point of light which waxes and which wanes and makes the darkness darker. Look with intense desire towards the dark, and when the light shines forth, grasp opportunity, what now appears. O horrid sight, O master of my life, I like it not, it is not true. It is not true. I am not this or that. This evil, selfish thing, it is not me. I am not this. The first stage of the Leo awareness and sensitivity turns into the beginning awareness of a higher impulse. Ben.
The dweller on the threshold does not emerge out of the fog of illusion and of glamour until the disciple is nearing the gates of life. Only when he can catch dim glimpses of the portal of initiation and an occasional flash of light from the angel of the presence who stands waiting beside that door, can he come to grips with the principle of duality, which is embodied for him in the dweller and the angel.
Consider humanity as a whole in the process of the first initiation. Turn our thoughts to the progress that humanity is making. Can we catch the glimpses as humanity approaches the gates of life? What are the flashes, the occasional flashes of light from the angel of the presence? What do we see in humanity that indicates the angel standing beside the door of initiation? How do we, in our groups, assist humanity in gripping the principle of duality embodied for the human soul and human personality in the dweller and the angel? In our meditation groups, many are focused on the dweller, recognition of the dweller in particular places around the globe. What thoughts can be brought forward, signifying the evidence of the angel of the presence standing, waiting beside that door. Donna.
The two great contrasting forces, the angel and the dweller, are brought together face to face, and the final conflict takes place. Again, you will note that it is a meeting and a battle between another and higher pairs of opposites. The aspirant has, therefore, three pairs of opposites with which to deal as he progresses towards light and liberation. The pairs of opposites. On the physical plane, the dense and the etheric, fought out on the path of purification. On the astral plane, the well-known dualities, fought upon the path of discipleship. On the mental plane, the angel and the dweller, fought upon the path of initiation.
So consider the types of thought that we have been reviewing, the thoughts that are on the concrete of the concrete mind, the concrete mental plane, thought out upon the path of purification. The thoughts upon the astral plane, glamour and illusion, thought upon the path of discipleship, the kama manasic thought, and on the mental plane, plane of spiritual discernment, the higher mental plane, the angel and the dweller, thought out upon the path of initiation. Know thyself, know where we are as individuals, and then how do we know ourself, the self of the group? Where is the group focused? What are the pairs of opposites that are being fought out to find the light and liberation? Consider the groups that we are meditating with, the groups who we are serving with, and focus on a level that one can keep the stillness and quiet of the mind, hold the principles of progress so that one can see the beautiful and the true, and bring those thoughts into relation with the group. So that in group service, no lower thoughts enter. Turn on the light with will and power and fierce desire, and then recount the vision that may come. What seest thou? Beyond the dark, revealed to me by means of light, I see a radiant form which beckons me. What is this being standing gracious in the dark and in the light? Is it, and can it be myself? The Leo keynote, I am that. Ellen.
My task is a difficult one because I write for those who are still held by the varying aspects of glamour, and usually by the secondary glamour and Maya. Illusion does not yet fully play its part, and the dweller is seldom adequately realized. Only when he can catch glimpses of the portal of initiation and an occasional flash of light from the angel of the presence who stands waiting beside that door, can he come to grips with the principle of duality, which is embodied for him in the dweller and the angel. The day will surely come, however, when you will stand in full awareness between these symbols of the pairs of opposites, with the angel on the right and the dweller on the left. May strength then be given to you to drive straight forward between these two opponents who have for long ages waged warfare in the field of your life. So may you enter into that presence where the two are seen as one, and naught is known but life and deity.
A teaching that Master DK gives us is that in group formation, we come to the realization that we are not all on the same point along the path. And some, he says, must slow down, and others must hasten their step. In group formation, consider how, as a group, we learn to pause, to slow down when necessary, and encourage others to hasten their step, or, in fact, hasten our step ourselves. Thinking the qualities of the soul into the consciousness of the group, demonstrating through every action, every thought, every consideration, the qualities of the soul, and embodying those qualities, and continuously working on one's individual glamours and illusions in order to keep in step with the groups that we are working with in meditative communion. Andrea.
Glamour upon the higher mental planes, the dweller on the threshold. We will now touch very briefly upon the problem of the dweller on the threshold. This dweller is oft regarded as a disaster, as a horror to be avoided, and as a final and culminating evil. I would remind you, nevertheless, that the dweller is the one who stands before the gate of God, who dwells in the shadow of the portal of initiation, and who faces the angel of the presence, open-eyed, as the ancient scripture calls it. The dweller can be defined as the sum total of the forces of the lower nature, as expressed in the personality, prior to illumination, to inspiration, and to initiation. The personality at this stage is exceedingly potent, and the dweller embodies all the psychic and mental forces which down the ages have been unfolded in a man and nurtured with care. It can be looked upon as the potency of the threefold material form prior to its consecration and dedication to the life of the soul and to the service of the hierarchy of God and humanity. The dweller on the threshold is all that a man is, apart from the higher spiritual self. It is the third aspect of divinity as expressed in the human mechanism, and this third aspect must eventually be subordinated to the second aspect, the soul.
We cultivate the higher thoughts. We cultivate spiritual discernment. We cultivate response to group vibration as we work in group to assist humanity. We work on the higher mental planes. What dawns upon the sight as thou standest on the way, O worn and tired disciple, triumphant in the light? A radiant shining form, which is myself, my soul, a dark and somber figure, yet old and wise, experienced and sad. This is myself, my lower self, my ancient tired appearance upon the ways of earth. These two stand face to face, and in between the burning ground. They move and merge. The path comes to an end. The way stretches before. Sight is attained, and in the light, reality appears. We work in our groups to bring humanity to this point of isolated identity. I am that I am. What canst thou now reveal, O server, on the way? Revelation comes through me, O Lord of life. I see it not. Why canst thou see it now? What hinders apprehension? Naught hinders me. I seek not sight, for I have seen. My task is revelation. I seek not for myself. I seek the path of transfiguration. What comes thy way for revelation? What hast thou to reveal? Only that which has for eons long existed and has for aye been here. The oneness of the presence, the area of love, the living, loving, wise, inclusive one, enfolding all and being all and leaving naught outside. To whom must come this revelation, O server of the world of living things? To all enfolded in the living, loving presence. To those who all, unknown to them, maintain that presence and forever shall endure, as doth that presence. Our goal, to bring into every aspect of our livingness, daily life, with friends, in community, that presence that we can know as a group on a higher level. And eventually know as that which brings us as a group, for the methodology is now group initiation, so that all of the groups with which we work live in this oneness of the presence. And who are those who live within that presence, but not know it not? They are myself and thou, and still they are myself, and still are all I meet. It is the one in every form who think mayhap that form is all. Who living thus in time and space, see not the light or life within the form, who hide within, behind the veils, between the 4 and the 5, the fourth kingdom in nature and the kingdom of God, and see not else. To them I must reveal the truth. So again, consider our groups, the time that we are spending in group meditation as the mechanism through which we can begin to draw down the truth and bring that into the lives of all that we meet. How will you do this hardest of all tasks, O triumphing disciple? By letting it be seen, I am myself the truth. By living as a fragment of that presence and seeing all its parts. And thus is revelation brought into the fourth and by the fifth. So the goal as a group, as we consider thought, is to work thought through this process, and then in group formation, in meditation, be able to bring forth as a group the true meaning of the word reveal. We reviewed the initiations, and what is demonstrated at each. Let us consider these initiations now as group initiations. Consider how the group work that we are doing is demonstrating the first initiation, and having resolved the dualities of the physical plane and our ability as a group to rightly impose etheric energy, the higher of the two, upon the physical energy. So as the group forms, as there's merging and blending that occurs, the group passes the first initiation by imposing this etheric energy upon the physical energy. Think of the groups. In the second initiation, demonstrating the ability to choose between the pairs of opposites and proceed with decision upon the middle way. The task of group initiation, choosing between the pairs of opposites and proceeding with decision upon the middle way as a group, fusing, blending. The third, fourth, and fifth, of course, are beyond us. But to recognize that even without our awareness, we are in the process of becoming groups that will pass the third initiation and employ the intuition for the right perception of truth. A step that is far beyond most groups, but consider that this is in the future and that we are all part of the past, present, and future. And Master DK says that every step forward into the light and into a closer relation to the hierarchy is made under the influence of the law of abstraction. So in our study and work with the idea of thought on the different levels, we need to consider this teaching about the law of abstraction and how critical it is to our stepping forward as a group into the light and into closer relation to hierarchy. So today, let's take some time with this and continue if we need to next Sunday. First, considering this sutra, it's from Light of the Soul in Book 4, which is, of course, the book that orients us to the higher thoughts, to the higher states of being. Martha, are you with us today? Margie, would you read this for us, please?
We have in this sutra a statement which is the key to effective and safe meditation work. The one who meditates is the soul, the ego, and his work is a positive activity, not a negative state or condition. Much of the work done under the name of meditation is dangerous and useless, because that which seeks control is the man on the physical plane, and his endeavor is concentrated on the attainment of brain stillness. He seeks to quiet the brain cells and render them negative, quiescent, and receptive. True meditation, however, concerns the soul and the mind. The receptivity of the brain is an automatic reaction to the higher condition. In Raja Yoga, therefore, contact with the true man, the ego, and the power to still the modifications of the thinking principle must precede all brain activity and responsiveness. The Lord of the mind is ever awake, ever aware of the tendency of the mind to respond to force currents produced by thought or desire. He therefore watches every emanation of force issuing from him and controls every thought and impulse, so that only those streams of energy and those impulses originate with him which are in line with the purpose held constantly in view and in pursuance of the group plan.
One of the strategies that we're given in the teachings is to do a daily review to hold ourselves accountable for our thoughts. Not in a critical way, but in a way to achieve this higher state, controlling every thought and impulse originating within us, and that the purpose is held constantly in view. And it is always aligned in pursuance of the group plan. So starting every day with a very short, brief meditation, aligning the personality bodies with the soul body, wherever one is, in terms of personality integration and soul fusion, and bringing that being into contact with our groups, becoming the group soul. This is the section that Master DK gives to his disciples related to the law of abstraction. The teaching was given to a disciple with a strong second ray, and I just want to note that later he does with another disciple who has a strong first ray, notes that that particular disciple was not to work on the law of abstraction because of the first ray and the individual's belief they had a seventh ray soul. So this is written for the majority of the disciples with the second ray soul. Heike.
I have earlier told you that you are being trained to work with thought form creating processes. Hence, another reason for the long hours by yourself, which characterize your life at this time, and which will be expressive of your days of the remainder of your life. To this desire of your soul, you must happily reconcile yourself. Because of this planned training, planned with the consent of your soul and me, your master, you are already peculiarly susceptible to group thought forms. You must learn increasingly to work under the influence of the law of abstraction. This is a law which is ever present in the world in relation to the processes of death. The aspect of its importance in connection with physical death is deemed of slight importance in comparison to its emphasis in connection with the world of thought. The training given to a disciple when he enters the periphery of an ashram lays an emphatic emphasis upon the need of abstracting one's consciousness from phase after phase of thought. The lesson of detachment in relation to one's possible emotional attachments is hard to learn, but a disciple must have mastered much of it prior to entering the ashram. When he does this, the interference is that detachment is now one of his established processes. However, the process of abstracting one's mind from all imposed thought forms, imposed by one's background, one's tradition, and one's social group, is a very difficult and subtle undertaking. It must definitely be learned prior to mastering the science of thought form building. The disciple has to stand free from mental impression and mental concepts before he can successfully create under direction of the ashram.
This is particularly vital, I think, as we consider the thought forms that are sometimes brought into group work. One abstracting oneself from one's own background, from one's own tradition, and one's own social group. In group formation, for the groups working on these higher levels to function, holding ourselves accountable for this so that our thoughts are directed into the group field without the coloring, without the tinge of one's own background, one's tradition, and one's social group, and holding oneself to that high standard. So today, let's finish reading the message or given, the teaching given in discipleship in the New Age, and then formulate a task for the next few weeks that we will give ourselves and hold ourselves accountable for in our group interactions. So when the law of abstraction is wielded consciously by you from within the ashram, you will discover that it has, as it might have been expected, various meanings and policies which will function on the different planes of consciousness. And then we're given these examples. So we're given the examples of what occurs on the plane of consciousness of the physical plane. Then we're given the idea in terms of the astral plane, and then finally the mental plane. So let us read through these and then determine how to move forward. The first, death or the effect of the law of abstraction upon the physical plane. This can refer to the abstraction of the life principle from the physical body in response to soul command. But it also can be referring to the death of an old physical plane relationship. So you might consider in the coming weeks, has there been in your life, in your experience, the death of an old physical plane relationship, a group, a physical group, a study group, whatever, that relationship has died. It can also refer to a cycle of physical plane conditioning or circumstance, to the termination of a relation to a physical plane group. Many of us, this occurs in work groups, or to the abstraction of an interest regarded hitherto as basic. So, for example, there may be someone who has had an interest in a particular physical plane activity that was regarded as basic to one's life, physical living, that now has been abstracted. That's abstraction from that. The second is the termination, this field of consciousness, the astral, termination of an outgoing affection toward a person or a group of persons upon the astral plane. This can precipitate a definite emotional crisis, which brings about the withdrawal of devotion to people or causes. An emotional crisis. How many of us know those who are going through an emotional crisis because of their withdrawal of their devotion to a particular cause or to particular people? This statement covers the intensity of emotion expressed in many and varied directions. Emotional abstraction is the hardest lesson which a disciple has to master. And the third, and the one we will consider deeply in this study of thought and consciousness and all the levels, the severing of connection with specific lines of thought. This may refer to the preconceived need which may dawn increasingly upon the disciple as he or she draws closer to the ashram to which he's assigned. It may and will lead them to sever connection with schools of thought and with social, political, religious, and circumstantial thought forms, using the word circumstantial to mean the mental conditioning brought about by circumstance. That is a very important and important to penetrate that meaning. Circumstantial thought forms. The mental conditioning that has been brought about by circumstance prior to being immersed in any ashramic thought form. So for those of us who are on the path of initiation or on the path of discipleship, this is probably the most important part of this teaching that we are given by Master DK. And I encourage you to ponder on this to the extent that you can in the coming weeks. Because we are going to look at the use of the images and the use of visualization in our group service, because that is the mechanism that we are using to create our group thought forms and create a synthesis for our groups so that we can then move through and from and consider how these visualizations and images, given this definition that we are given, to consider visualizations that sever our connections with schools of thought, social, political, religious, and circumstantial, that might inhibit our ability to become immersed in an ashramic thought form. And in the coming age, this is going to be very important for us in group formation. So this is something that we'll begin to consider in our next meeting. But when we look at the choosing of images in our groups, what are we using and what's the significance? What is being brought into the group consciousness? And you might consider, and we'll consider next time the meaning of this, of the Rurik pact symbol. And then this particular sloka from Agni Yoga Heart. A rose is a symbol of consonance, and the dominant of the radiation of the rose is linked with the glow of the heart. That's a thought for us to close on today as we consider the images that we use to guide our group processes. Let's go back. And I will offer you in the coming week, I'll send out a short recording that uses a technique that was developed by a cultural anthropologist to investigate the meanings of the 5 basic symbols that are used when we create visualizations on a more abstract level. The circle, the equidistant cross, the triangle, the square, and the spiral. And hopefully you'll have a time to look at that as we move into this consideration of our visualizations and the symbology that we're using. So consider for yourself this particular demonstration of the law of abstraction, severing connections with specific lines of thought. And let us close today with the mantra of the will. In the center of the will of God, we stand. Naught shall deflect our will from God's will. We implement that will by love. As the triangle divine, we work out that will within the square and serve humanity.